Hi there. I'm Henry Bechelet, Technical Manager for ICL UK and Ireland, and I'm here with Dr. Andy Owen, who is the International Technical Manager for ICL Turf and Landscape. So this is the sixth and final installment of this series of technical update videos that we've been making on the subject of microdochium patch disease management. And in this episode, with the help of our colleague, Phil Collinson, we're going to turn our attention to the practicalities of integrated disease management. So far in the series, we've covered the background biology of Microdochium nivale with Kate Entwistle, which was good. And then in the second one, me and Andy had a chat about what ITM actually is. In the third installment, we invited Glenn from Syngenta to talk about fungicide technology. And then the next couple were me and Andy talking about trial work. But in this final one, we wanted to sort of bring it back to reality and talk about practical integrated turf management advice, or sort of, tactics that greenkeepers can employ on a sort of daily basis to sort of come up with sort of some effective disease control strategies. Okay, so to help us do that, we're joined by Phil Collinson, who talks to greenkeepers on a daily basis. Phil is one of our team of area sales managers out in the field, and Phil covers the northwest of England. And Phil, look, you're in a customer-facing role that does have a sales aspect to support our dealers out in the field, but it's also highly technical. So, look, to start off with, can you just give us an idea of your day-to-day sort of job role when it comes to working out in the field?
Yeah, generally we'll see greenkeepers on a day-to-day basis, find out the issues that they're facing, and then try and come up with, I guess, some solutions from our side of things, but based on some of the research that we've been doing and the product knowledge that we have. I've been in the industry since I was 19. It's all I've ever known, really. It's kind of 18, 19 years into it now. I've been at ICL for 5 years. I gained my facts and basis qualifications during that time, and really enjoying the role because, yeah, like you said, we are face to face with a lot of end users, and really think we've got some good answers to the problems that modern day greenkeeping is facing right now.
That's good. Thanks, Phil. It's interesting. You're an area sales manager, a regional sales manager for the northwest of the UK. We're talking on this series about Microdochium nivale and integrated turf management. As a start, how serious do you think a disease is in terms of the customers you see if we're focused on Microdochium?
I would say it's the #1 disease that they face that can really cause damage to their playing surfaces. Certainly in the autumn and winter time, when we know that damage can happen quickly, it can really affect the quality of the surface, and that damage that occurs around that time of year can be quite long lasting as well. Because we don't have the growth for recovery, that if we get a big outbreak for example, in October, you're 4 or 5 months before you can do a great deal about it. And as we know, the pressure that greenkeepers face these days at the playing season is 12 months of the year. And that brings a lot of challenges with it, and Microdochium probably being the main one through that period, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I want to know, Phil, because I don't get out much anymore. What's the sort of general attitude that sort of greenkeepers have towards the use of fungicides? We've done some market research last year to quite a lot of course managers in the UK and Ireland, and there was 2 big things that came out of that study. First of all, we asked them what their sort of main technical challenges were, and resoundingly at the top was disease management. But we also sort of asked them what they would sort of intend to do in the next 5 years, and they said they wanted to use less fungicides, and that they're not sort of necessarily contradictory statements. I think that they can kind of sit hand in hand, but that sort of almost says to me that you know, the integrated strategies are going to become more and more important. So, you know, do you feel like integrated disease management is happening out there in the field, and that greenkeepers are sort of putting, you know, fully coherent programs together?
Well, on your first question regarding the attitude to fungicide use, I think right across the board, no matter which site you go to, I think there is that desire to be as least reliant on fungicide technologies as possible to manage turf without the need for them. And some sites obviously just naturally are more inclined to have success with less reliance. Whether you're a links course on the coast, it stands to reason that the guys looking after parkland courses inland at a tree line, are probably going to need those fungicide technologies more than other guys. But again, across the board, that we have seen more and more people adopting the non-fungicidal management way of managing microdochium. I still think for a lot of guys that it forms a vital part of their program through that period. It has to, if they're to really limit the risk of that disease developing. But we are seeing more being used and more of an eye on nutrition, and it's probably down to the fact that you know, in recent years there has been some major revocations of products that would have been used previously. So I think there's a want to go that way, but there's also a need to go that way. The greenkeepers are having to look at those different alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting, isn't it? You know, we've done a lot of trial work in this area, and as a company, ICL advocate trial work and doing trial work with some of our customers. Now, I know, Phil, you've supported a few customers with trial work. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you've seen doing that with the customers?
Yeah, certainly off the back of the work that you guys have been doing. I suppose we always have that question of, well, great in the trial work, but there's no golfers going over your green. Is it the real world? And there was one particular greenkeeper, Scott Reeves up at Leyland Golf Club, who kind of was faced with the crossroads of once proper conazole-based fungicides were out the market, the kind of the ones that he would rely on to get him through that tricky period of autumn and winter. With those being on the horizon of being pulled, his question to me was, well, what's my way forward in the future? Is it non-fungicide? Is it the new fungicides? So we set up some interesting work there where he would have on one side of the green program that he non-fungicide approach in a different part, and then a control as well. And right across the board, what was really interesting to see was exactly what you guys saw in your trial work. So first and foremost, it ticked the box of saying, well, actually, no, you can rely on this trial data because it is true to real life. And the levels of disease that you were seeing match what you guys saw, so that the fungicides are effective if you use them the right way and still represent a real answer to managing disease through that period. But there's real benefits to be had outside of fungicidal products as well. And actually, when you plan them and you integrate them in the right manner, you can get some really astounding results. So yeah, it's been great to be involved in some of the work like that and see that it does replicate out into the real world as well as the trials, you know.
Yeah, great for us as well, Phil. You know, it's kind of like, you know, that's the only problem sometimes with the trial work, that it's sort of, they're easy to criticize, really. So, you know, we always like to take that next step and almost like put our money where our mouth is and sort of, you know, put them out in the real world and put these programs out there. And it's great to see them sort of coming up trumps, you know. Okay, so what do we want to do? Do we want to sort of just sort of finish by summarizing the sort of key points that people should take from the trial work in reality, and just kind of like almost summarize all those things that you were sort of working with your trial work and with your sort of general program? Andy, do you want to sort of come up? Should we take it in turns? Do you want to sort of come up with sort of the key, you know, we'll come up with the key factors that are important when it comes to integrated disease management strategy?
Yeah, the trial work was so interesting, and I think it did present itself with a number of key pieces of advice we could give out. And the first one for me would be to manage your nutrition appropriately. You know, we need to keep the plant healthy going into autumn. In fact, into autumn and onwards, because we know we're not getting the particular cold spells that we see that time of year, and we see growth occurring right through the winter. And so in many ways, our disease pressure period is expanding a little bit, and we need to keep the plant healthy through that. Our trial work is based on good nutrition, as something we need to actively manage. We make granular applications, leading into the autumn, perhaps Sierraform GTK step at a low rate, a slow release nitrogen with potassium going on as well. And then we're seeing liquid applications through that pressure period as well, just to keep the plant happy and healthy. And that's a benefit. I sometimes get a feeling that in the industry, people are afraid of applying nutrition through the autumn because they think it will exacerbate the disease on the surface, and that's not what we see. And obviously we're not advocating huge amounts of conventional nitrogen going on, but the plant still needs feeding through that time, particularly when it's growing. That's been, almost formed the backbone of the trial work we've done, and we've demonstrated some really good success.
Yeah. I mean, in all the trials, the way in which we encourage disease is by not, in our control plots, is by not fertilizing them. We don't over fertilize them, but I'm sure that would do the same thing. But under fertilizing is just a surefire way of getting diseases. Over fertilizing, the trick is to just keep everything nice and ticking over, isn't
it? Yeah. What about you then, Henry? What's yours?
Oh, well, look, it's a fungal disease, isn't it? And so moisture is really important, of course. And I think during the course of all this trial work, Andy, I don't know about you, but I've been really surprised about the sort of just how not important it is, sort of general moisture to the sort of development of the disease, but how powerful the sort of moisture management technologies in particular can be at slowing down the rate of development. We've always removed dew from turf, for instance, but it was great. I mean, it must be 5 years ago now, to sort of those dew dispersant results showing that you kind of cut down the rate of development of disease by half was great. But then that really surprising result that when you sort of integrated two different types of moisture management technologies, the dew dispersant to roll the droplets off the leaf, the penetrance, alternate applications to kind of just manage moisture in the upper soil profile. I mean, they compounded themselves, and that's when it all started to come together for me in terms of my understanding that sort of integrated disease management is about utilizing things that sort of add to the equation. And with just two simple moisture management technologies, you could really slow down the rate of development of disease. So we always knew that moisture management was really important during the summer, during times of deficit. I don't think any of us realized sort of just how important it was or is during the autumn time to support our disease management strategy. So moisture management just as important as nutrition, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree absolutely, and it was really interesting to have that reinforced by those initial trials, and then every piece of trial work we've done since. Again, a key cornerstone of the research and the results, the successful results that we're seeing. Okay, so third one, I guess we really link into what we actually mean by integrated turf management. An integrated turf management program utilizes all the technologies that are available to you, and as part of those we see the use of the fungicides that are available. They are extremely effective at helping greenkeepers, turf managers manage disease on their surface. That's what they've been designed to do, and we shouldn't be afraid of making the judicial use of the plant protection products, the fungicides that are available. We're not talking about over application, but these are well formulated research products that can really help us maintain high quality surfaces. They form a cornerstone of integrated programs to manage disease.
Yeah, exactly right. They're super effective. I'm always knocked out, with the trial work when we have a positive control, fungicidal control, not having loads of fungicide being applied. Maybe the ISTE trial was 3 applications of fungicide at the start of a really sort of you know, perfect storm, ideal for microdocium, autumn and winter. And they just did
Very
brilliantly,
successful.
didn't they? It was the
Yeah.
simplest approach of all. And of course, you know, what the fungicides do is actually kill the disease. You know, the rest of what we've been talking about sort of at best slow it down, which is important. But, you know, when you've got 7 months of really high disease pressure, I think it's really important to zero it out at you know, key
Yeah.
moments to, you know, absolutely put the brakes on its development. So, yeah, absolutely. Right, so it's my turn, isn't it now? Well, I'm going to go super traditional, I suppose, because the use of sulfate of iron seems to be really important. We sort of, without overdoing it, we call it sort of turf hardness. I don't know that anyone really knows how it sort of works, but certainly all our trials do show that the use of sulfate of iron during the autumn period, applied at the right time, can help slow the rate of development of disease down. And you know, I don't know why that sort of happens. Maybe it's just a sort of an alteration of the sort of canopy environment that temporarily sort of creates a less conducive environment for the hive bee to develop. Don't know really, but it certainly does work. But I think with a word of caution, because in the ISTE trial, where the disease pressure was so high, the protocol dictated that you know, there was quite a few applications of iron that went on, and we kind of felt that it wasn't beneficial when you sort of overdid it. That maybe even the sort of quality of the turf was deteriorating as a result of it. So you have to be careful with iron, but certainly it should be in there
Yeah.
as a sort of method of just, you know, putting the brakes on a little
Yeah, and the timing, the trial work did demonstrate the
bit.
timing of the application of iron was absolutely critical. And they were really the cornerstones of the successful work that we showed. You know, good nutrition, moisture management, you know,
Yeah,
use of iron and judicial use of the fungicides that are available to you should give you good, well, we demonstrated will give you good control of the
yeah,
disease through that period. You know, I think if we're talking generally about integrated turf management, the other takeaways would be you mustn't forget the longer term solutions. And you know, the
okay.
disease is coming a lot because of the environmental conditions in which the turf is growing. And so, you know, things like improving the drainage of your greens, you know, things like managing your thatch levels, so monitoring your organic matter, making sure you have, you know, cultural practices in place to keep that in check. You know, just the straightforward traditional things like making sure the
Yeah,
turf has enough light and airflow, you know, all those things, they're a longer term program, but they all need to be thought about and incorporated.
they do. Yeah, they really do. But Andy, aren't we forgetting the obvious or the big one?
We,
Have we
yeah,
been
yeah, of course.
conditioned to not talk about the grass types? Because, you know, the last time as an industry we talked about the grass types like 15 years ago, everyone got their knickers in a twist, didn't they? But I mean, it's, you know, host susceptibility
Yeah,
is huge in all this. You know, the one trial where when we were sort of employing non-fungicidal cultural management, which was all sort of, you know, integrated management, you know, nutrition, moisture management, and the use of iron. The only trial where we sort of zeroed out on disease was the trial where the trial plots were populated primarily by brown top men.
yeah,
And so in that trial, you know, it was fully integrated. And the reason why we didn't scream about that trial is we kind of felt that it was unrealistic that actually most people are looking after Poa annua. And it's almost like, well, what a shame that is. We should be sort of bringing that one out into the daylight and saying, look, if you want to sort of manage your turf without fungicides, or you want to radically reduce the susceptibility of the turf to suffering from microdocium patch disease, the grass types are really important.
yeah.
But we've been through all this. Phil, what's the current state of play out there in terms of greenkeepers either trying to or wanting to change the grass types within their greens? Is that a part of sort of modern thinking at the moment?
Yeah, definitely, I'd say so.
That's good.
Speak to many greenkeepers that would give you the feedback. Look, we want to change it. It's not always easy or straightforward with the pressures of producing a surface, whether that's height of cut pressures through the growing season. And then, there's plenty of people that have tried for many years who would probably hold their hands up and say, we haven't had a huge amount of success for whatever reason. But there is that desire definitely to move towards those finer grasses, yeah.
Yeah, we actually in the sort of market research study we did, that came out as well, that people knew that possibly with the sort of a bit of fear that fungicides are going to get less and less and less due to regulatory pressures in the future, that sort of, if we're going to manage disease, we do need to start working on those grass types as well. And so maybe it will come to the fore. Andy, I think that we need to get into that kind of territory. We need to help people. We need to sort of, very much like in the same way as saying integrated disease management is about nutrition, moisture management, and the selective use of iron. We need to come up with that same kind of approach in terms of sort of key effective measures that can sort of help with sword species conversion. And I think we know the answers to these things. It's just that we need the proofs. That's the one thing that never happened last time, was it? Is that actually we had the trial work and we had the sort of those methods clearly described that were actually effective in this area. But I mean, it's a biggie, but maybe we should move on to that. What do you think?
I agree completely. Yeah, I think it's almost like a missing part of the research, or something that we need to focus on to again provide the best advice. I don't think there's a clear roadmap of how to achieve a good species conversion, as Phil was saying, in amongst the conditions in which people are managing. No, that's been really interesting, Phil. I think
yes,
it's good, to finish off from me. I think over this series we've discussed integrated turf management. We've shown the fact that we've got a whole series of years worth of research on this topic and shown great success just by understanding the technologies that are available, using them in the right way. You can really help manage high pressure diseases in high pressure situations.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's been really a really nice way of finishing, actually. So obviously it's clear the way we finished up there that there's plenty more work to do as well. And so I think we should sort of say that we're committed to that. Phil needs us when he's having his conversations out there with his customers. Phil needs us to keep coming up with answers or sort of pointers so that everyone can sort of get a bit better. So thanks, Phil, actually, for showing up and having a chat with us. Really great. Thanks, Andy, as well. That's been highly enjoyable experience to have your wise words and your interesting discussion. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Really, we will possibly, hopefully, do some more of this kind of thing. Talk about all the work that we're doing. If you think it's of any use. But until then, take care, and we'll see you soon. And and sort of make sure you sort of look out for the other episodes in this series. All right, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.